having been passed by Patrese just a few laps ago, but Arnoux in for his regular pit stop.
Arnoux and the rest of the Italian team do service on that car is out on the racetrack. Patrese continues to motor around.
Crew finishing the work on René Arnoux, and he goes back out into the race. Meanwhile, incoming Alain Prost in the Renault.
And at this point in the season, Prost, as we look at an accident out on the course, that's Derek Warwick's Candy Tolman Hart-powered race car as he got into the marbles that somehow had gotten to the racetrack at that point and ended up on the fence. At this point in the race, this point in the season, Alain Prost, that man right there, felt that he was in the best position of anybody to become the world's champion. The car was running very fast, and Prost was driving with a great deal of confidence.
K.K. Rosberg pulling out of the pits, and off the racetrack is De Angelis momentarily.
And Elio had just barely missed the Warwick car. Remember, we told you there was debris in that corner. And I'll tell you, the incidents in the afternoon was not yet over for that corner. Remember Warwick's car sitting perched on the wall as we look at the Ferrari of Tambay coming out of the pit area after its pit stop.
And into the pits, Riccardo Patrese. Clock starting on the Patrese pit stop as the Brabham crew goes to work. Meanwhile, out on the racetrack, it is Patrick Tambay showing the lead, with Patrese hoping to get back out onto the course and maintain second position.
Patrese with a long pit stop, and it really did hurt his chances at this point in the event.
And he comes in heavy contact with the car of Warwick, which was already up on the tires.
That was Michele Alboreto who found that problem in that corner, and it was, correction, it was not Alboreto, it was Danny Sullivan. It was for Sullivan his very first Formula One crash. Danny Sullivan, the American, in his rookie season on the Formula One Grand Prix circuit.
Tambay the leader, followed by Patrese. Cars come out of the corner onto the straightaway, beginning to pick up some speed. You can see the distance that Tambay leads at this point over Patrese.
Tambay not only hoping for his first personal victory, but the Goodyear tire people also hoping that Tambay does well today. Up to this point in the season, remember, another one of those new terms, Michelin, although they had surfaced pretty strongly in '82, Michelin had won each of the first 3 races, and right now, the number 27 of Tambay was hoping to reverse that trend, and sliding off the course, who was leading at that point, is Riccardo Patrese. Patrese simply coming around that sweeping right-hander. He apparently did not brake soon enough and had heavy crash, heavy damage into the left side of his machine.
Here's a replay of it. He had taken the lead from Tambay on the previous lap, and this is the problem that developed as he came out of one of the turns. Patrese into the tires in the Armco barrier.
It was a crash that some of the news media suggested as another one of the competitors. The Ferrari of Arnoux also spins off the course right at the site of the Patrese crash.
He was running in second position, by the way, at this point.
The Patrese crash, as we have another spin, moments later Nigel Mansell spins out. The Patrese crash was a crash that a lot of the news media suggested might have been willed by the Italian crowd that wanted to see that man, but more importantly, that car, the Ferrari, win on this course.
Here's smoke pouring out of the car of Muriel Boldi as he pulls off of the race course, and presenting a problem for the drivers behind him with that smoke screen. They're having to go through it. The crowd looks on, about 90,000 people on hand for this particular event, as Patrick Tambay wins the San Marino Grand Prix. Second place, Alain Prost. René Arnoux finishes in third position. K.K. Rosberg fourth, and fifth was John Watson. Once again, the winner, Patrick Tambay. Coming up, the Monaco Grand Prix from Monte Carlo. In points, Patrick Tambay third, John Watson fourth, and Niki Lauda was fifth. And the next stop, the Monaco Grand Prix from Monte Carlo, and it's always one of the highlights of the 1983 season.
Keke Rosberg still working with a strategy that seems to be running against the grain of all the other competitors. All the competitors started this race with rain tires. The track was wet, as you can see, the dark color, except for Keke Rosberg and the Williams team. They started on dry tires, and it proved to be an excellent decision. Watch Williams and his ability to accelerate out of the pack as the field snakes to the streets of downtown Monte Carlo.
Prost is the leader with Rosberg second, then Cheever, Tambay, DeSarius, and Arnoux. And you notice there on the start that Rosberg went to the inside of the racetrack, found a dry spot, and was able to move into second position quickly.
A race that qualifying took place also during the rain. By the way, this race traditionally takes place just a few days after the Cannes Film Festival, and certainly one of the most, maybe the most glamorous race in all the world every year.
Keke Rosberg has jumped into the lead of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix, while in the pits is Nelson Piquet.
As Piquet pulls away, you might notice that we have made no mention of the McLarens of John Watson and Niki Lauda yet. As trouble on the course, as we pick up that story on the McLarens a little later, the Ferrari of René Arnoux has touched the fence and actually ripped the rim off of the left front of the race car. The story on the McLarens, they didn't qualify. It was raining, and for the first time in 130 races, Niki Lauda is not in the starting field.
The number 15 car, driven by Alain Prost in the Renault. As this is the famous tunnel at Monte Carlo. It's where you go from bright sunshine into almost complete darkness, and just as your eyes adjust to the darkness, you're back out into the light again.
A race, of course, that always takes place in front of some of the most regaled royalty in all the world. You saw the number 29 arrows there of Marc Surer. The car debuted at brand new paint job at the race at Monte Carlo. Surer is running up in the top 6 at this point, as a lot of the front running cars had to stop and change tires, and Surer in trouble, spins right in front of Derek Warwick. Warwick T-bones him, and both cars come to a stop sitting on the racetrack. Here's a replay.
There is the initial impact by Surer as he's coming right at you, hits the inside of the retaining Armco barrier, then bounces across the racetrack, and Warwick with absolutely no place to go.
Warwick, you saw the car was still mobile. He was able to back the car out of the predicament he was in here as the rest of the field goes through the chicane. You saw the yellow and black Renault of Alain Prost threading his way through the debris on the track.
Into the pits comes Jacques Lafitte as Keke Rosberg is the leader of the race at this point, with Piquet running in second position and Alain Prost in the Renault in third. Rosberg is leading the Monaco Grand Prix.
Of course, at this point of the race, the track is dried out completely, and those who thought that Rosberg's advantage may have been because of tires alone are now beginning to eat their words, because Rosberg continues to hold on. Remember, that's a non-turbocharged car that's down by about 100 horsepower to all the others, and most felt it was not possible to win races, but Rosberg has been making them eat their words, at least in the first third of the season.
And there is the third place car driven by Alain Prost, the Renault, car number 15.
And that Renault of Prost was probably the odds-on favorite. The car was very fast in 1982. It was probably the odds-on favorite to become the championship car and driver for 1983.
Patrick Tambay was in fourth place at this time, and Sullivan running in fifth, as Keke Rosberg receives the checkered flag and wins the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. And finishing in second position for that race was Nelson Piquet. Third, Alain Prost. Fourth, Patrick Tambay. And fifth was Danny Sullivan.
Now Goodyear has won 2 in a row, so they're now 2 wins with Michelin with 3. It's beginning to tighten up the tire battle.
All right, and the point standings after 5 races now. Nelson Piquet has jumped into the lead, 2-point advantage over Alain Prost. Tambay is third, Rosberg fourth, and John Watson in fifth place in the point standings.
Rosberg has consistently been the highest finishing non-turbo car, and interestingly enough, the non-turbocharged race cars have won 2 of the first 5 races on the trail.
The next stop, the 6th of the year, May 22nd, the Belgian Grand Prix, and the race gets off to a false start, Larry.
Yeah, Andre de Cesaris, who was feeling pretty strong, he had a very good performance in practice and qualifying, jumped the start a little bit, but he actually did a pretty safe thing there. He signaled all the drivers what was going on. He knew he was wrong. We reformed the grid and ready to go, but de Cesaris is able to make the save move again, and this time really takes the lead.
And a nice move as they head for the first turn. It's de Cesaris in front with Prost running second, then Tambay, Arnoux, Piquet, and Patrese.
And Piquet braking heavily. You saw that smoke going into the first turn. That was Nelson Piquet braking heavily, but he came out of the pack in 5th position.
De Cesaris leading here as they come through a chicane. The Belgian Grand Prix.
Andrea de Cesaris with his best chance ever at winning a Formula One race. Remember, de Cesaris was the guy who crashed something like 14 of the first 16 Grands Prix that he entered a couple of years ago.
And a car has stalled on the racetrack. In fact, contact between Jarier and John Watson. Jarier's car able to move into the pit area, but Watson is stalled on the racetrack as de Cesaris continues to lead the race and in fact is pulling away from second place Alain Prost. Battle for third between Piquet and Arnoux.
As a matter of fact, the performance by de Cesaris was pretty stunning at this point. De Cesaris was really making a shambles of the field. It's a race that takes place on a course that's right in the middle of an area known for changing weather conditions, and this was a factor in all the team setups throughout the week.
On this particular day, it is dry but heavily overcast, and there are almost 100,000 people looking on. As into the pit area comes de Cesaris, making the 25-second pit stop. Not a particularly good one. He's back out on the race. Meanwhile, the lead is inherited by Alain Prost.
De Cesaris, as a matter of fact, had dropped all the way back to 5th position. You saw the limping Ferrari of René Arnoux. He had blown an engine, and Arnoux is out of this one.
And a spin coming up here by Winkelhock. We saw him in trouble earlier in the program in another race, and a wheel comes off of his car, and he loses control and bangs into the outer wall.
Winkelhock goes right through the catch fencing. You can look off on the right. You can see the wheel bouncing high over the fence right in the upper right-hand corner of the screen out into the crowd, but fortunately no reports of injury or anybody being hurt by that wheel. You see the heavy damage inflicted to the ATS number 9, but Manfred himself, the West German, he's okay. He's already examining the damage to the race car. De Cesaris has now moved back up into 2nd position as de Cesaris continues to show his dominance here today at the Belgian Grand Prix.
But just about that time, de Cesaris' engine lets go because of a camshaft gear. Alain Prost is in the lead now with Piquet running in 2nd position. There's Tambay in 3rd. Cheever here in 4th position, and Keke Rosberg, car number 1, drifts in 5th.
Well, Prost was not as dominant as he had been in previous races, but with the retirement of de Cesaris, it began to look like Prost was dominant enough to perhaps win today. There he is, Alain Prost, looking in a pretty good position right now.
And Giacomelli's car also out of competition.
Renault had touched the wall in his Candy Tolman Hart turbo-powered race car. Renault getting back underway on the course, but certainly his chances for victory, whatever he had, were now dashed.
And a change of position here as Eddie Cheever passes Nelson Piquet and takes over 3rd position.
Piquet was losing 5th gear, and the American was in a position to take advantage of it, and it looked like it was going to be a glorious day for the Renaults.
Alain Prost wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Patrick Tambay 2nd Grand Prix trail. Alain Prost was the leader with 28 points. Nelson Piquet was 2nd with 24. Then Patrick Tambay, Keke Rosberg, and John Watson 5th. The next stop, Motor City in the United States, Detroit, Michigan, for the 7th stop on the 1983 Formula One trail. And the cars line up ready for the start. And there's the green light. The race is on.
And right away, a problem at the start. Tambay's hand goes up. He's got a problem in the Ferrari, and the field leaves Patrick Tambay at the starting grid. So for the 2nd week in a row, there's a problem with a front runner right at the drop of the, well, green light, I guess is the correct way of saying it.
Off the turn, heading for the straightaway for the very first time. Nelson Piquet has jumped into the lead with Arnoux in 2nd position and De Angelis in 3rd.
A tight street circuit snaking through the downtown section of Detroit, a race that was important to a lot of the people in the racing community, as the motor capital certainly of the United States and maybe of the world, of course, is the audience for this Grand Prix.
Stalled car of Patrick Tambay is taken from the racetrack as the lead continues to be held by Nelson Piquet.
Piquet and the Brabham came into the race well ranked in the point standings for the season, and it was becoming pretty obvious that it looked like Piquet was going to be in it, Alain Prost was going to be in it, and maybe one or both of the Ferraris of Tambay and René Arnoux for the World's Championship points. Things weren't really that far along to being decided, but it was beginning to shake down as Eddie Cheever dropped out of this one early on.
One of the Renaults, Eddie Cheever, drops out of the race very early as Arnoux challenges Piquet now for the lead. Piquet able to stave off the challenge of Arnoux for the time being, but some good racing up front in the Detroit Grand Prix.
That's Arnoux, of course, in the blood-red Ferrari, the Italian mark, and he gets a pass going up Woodruff Avenue and moves into the number 1 position.
So a change of leader here as René Arnoux moves into the lead and Nelson Piquet drops back into 2nd position.
This race along the banks of the Detroit River, however, was going to be one of high attrition. And it seemed as though that whoever led this race early on, well, it didn't necessarily mean that they were going to have a good day. And you watch and see what happens as attrition begins to have its effect on the Detroit Grand Prix.
Good battle in the pack as Roberto Guerrero passes Patrese and picks up the position. So the first two cars are pretty much out of the lead, but some good racing going on in the middle of the pack.
There is the Ferrari, things going its way. There's the number 22 of De Cesaris. There is Michele Alboreto and the green and black Benetton Tyrrell. Remember that name. He becomes prominent in this race in the not too distant future. There he goes, Michele Alboreto beginning to assert himself.
Passing De Cesaris and moving into fourth position. Pit stops now beginning to be made as Keke Rosberg comes in. Meanwhile, Arnoux continues to lead, but is being challenged.
We're real happy to have fish sticking, but we.
This is Arnoux, and Arnoux is going to drop out of the race.
The Ferrari will be a DNF today. It looked like things were going to go Arnoux's way, but it wasn't to be as he slows down. There once again is Alboreto. There is one of the Alphas, I believe, that has crashed. It's De Cesaris who has tested the outer retaining wall, and the wall at Detroit proves to be just as solid as the walls in every other city in the world.
John Watson moves up to fourth position from 21st as debris begins to blow onto the racetrack.
And John Watson, Bob, is doing it again. He seems to have a habit on these tight circuit courses, these city circuits. When he starts in the back, that's the time when you really got to watch Watson. He likes to pass a lot of cars.
At this point, it is Piquet leading Alboreto, but Alboreto is able to make the move here.
Piquet slows suddenly. You see some smoke coming from the left rear tire. It's flat. Nelson Piquet with victory in his grasp and a big quantum leap toward the 1983 World's Championship has a flat left rear tire and allows young Michele Alboreto, the Italian who is destined to become a Ferrari driver within 12 months of this race. He takes the lead. It looks like he has his opportunity to become, or rather to earn, his second ever Formula One victory.
Tough break for Piquet as the tire goes down on him and he relinquishes the lead to Michele Alboreto.
Here comes Michele around the water, down the front stretch. The checkered flag is out and he's done it. The young Italian, victory number 2.
Alboreto in the Terrell Ford wins. Keke Rosberg second, John Watson is third, Nelson Piquet fourth, and Jacques Lafitte fifth at the Detroit Grand Prix. After 7 events, the point standings: Alain Prost with 28, Nelson Piquet with 22nd, third is Tambay with 23, Keke Rosberg fourth with 22, and John Watson fifth in the point standings with 15.
Bob, it really has been a very competitive Formula One season up to this point.
So the cars and drivers don't move very far in terms of distance for the next stop on the trail in Montreal, Canada for the Canadian Grand Prix.
It's the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the Isle of Notre Dame, a course, of course, named in the honor of the late Canadian great Formula One driver Gilles Villeneuve.
And the Ferrari driven by Arnoux jumps into the lead at the start of the race with Patrese right behind him in second position. In third place is Alain Prost, then Nelson Piquet and Patrick Tambay, the first 5 just after the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. There is the Ferrari driven by René Arnoux.
The Ferrari up front again, where it has been so many times. René Arnoux racing in the shadows of some of the world's most famous race drivers, a mark that has left its mark on Formula One racing for well over 40 years now.
Arnoux continues in the lead. Piquet has moved around Alain Prost for third position now. There once again is the leader.
The World's Championship point standings for drivers is still very much up for grabs, although the Ferraris haven't had quite the success this year as they had hoped to. That team right there, the Williams team, has been very fast all year long. The most successful of the 2 Williams drivers up to this point, Piquet. Their other driver, the teammate to Nelson Piquet, Ricardo Patrese, has been plagued by bad luck. There is Rosberg trying to do battle with Andrea De Cesaris, and Rosberg slides right into De Cesaris. They bang wheels going into the corner, but both are able to continue.
The number 16, driven by Eddie Cheever, as a car moves into the pit. This is Nelson Piquet, and he is going to be out of the race because of a throttle cable problem. Meanwhile, on the racetrack, it is still René Arnoux showing the way. His teammate Patrick Tambay now runs in third position, so Ferrari's first and third at this point.
And there is Tambay. Tambay was destined to have the fastest lap of this race. but it wasn't going to be enough. Pit stop, leader, Arnoux.
Crew going to work. They're changing tires on the right side of the car. Meanwhile, Riccardo Patrese momentarily into the lead, but he too comes in for his pit stop.
The Formula One teams made great strides in these pit stops this year. What started out as 20 to 30-second activities was down to the low teens and even as short as 10 and 11 seconds per pit stop for refueling before the season was over.
Patrese gets back onto the racetrack as Patrick Tambay comes in for a fuel stop. Crew going to work on that car. Meanwhile, Arnoux still continuing to lead and still looking for his first win. Patrese running in second position. Eddie Cheever is in the yellow car there in third, and right behind him in fourth is Patrick Tambay.
René Arnoux, however, continues to be the dominant force in this race as we watch the cars running third through fifth as they work their way around the course named, of course, in honor of a former driver.
And Cheever making a nice move, passes Patrick Tambay and moves into second position. Make that Patrese. Cheever is in second and Patrese now is third.
And for Eddie Cheever, who had hoped that the Renault, the powerful Renault, who was the car and team that was so strong in 1982, Cheever had hoped that he would get his first victory this year. He ran in second position right now. He was destined to finish second twice in this season, but he would never get that elusive victory number one.
John Watson making a move here and passing Patrese. So does Danny Sullivan in the green car. Meanwhile, Derek Warwick is out of competition.
Well, Warwick, who has had bad luck so many times in a car that's shown great speed. As a matter of fact, near the end of the 1982 season, that car really came along. A lot of people thought it might be one of the forces this year, but it just wasn't to be.
Keke Rosberg, the defending world champion, is running fourth in the race at this point.
Rosberg, who would win only one time this year, he also had only one pole. The first half of the season was pretty strong for Keke, but after the midpoint of the season, it really began to taper off, and here's just about where it started.
And there is Patrese pulling into the pit area out of the race. René Arnoux on Goodyear tires wins for the 150th time. René Arnoux, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix. Eddie Cheever finishes second, Patrick Tambay third, Keke Rosberg is fourth, and Alain Prost is fifth.
And Arnoux is the seventh different winner in 8 races.
Once again, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix, René Arnoux. We'll be back with the British Grand Prix from Silverstone. 8 races, Alain Prost the leader, Nelson Piquet second, Patrick Tambay tied for second, Keke Rosberg and René Arnoux. Now the Grand Prix cars compete twice in England later this year at Brands Hatch. The 9th stop, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
And of course, the home countrymen hoped that the Lotuses would do well. They debuted the new Lotus chassis, the 94Ts. One of them qualified up near the front. That was Elio De Angelis. Nigel Mansell had problems all week long trying to qualify. He had to start in the back of the grid. Matter of fact, he started in 18th, but he comes to the front. Watch for Mansell later in this event.
Once again, the Ferraris are up front with Arnoux and Tambay. Patrese falls into third position as the cars round corner number 1. Eddie Cheever running in 4th place at this time, and then Nelson Piquet. The Ferraris race to turn number 2.
The Ferraris spent a lot of time up in the front at the vanguard in the middle of the season, but they just never seemed to be able to accumulate. You saw Keke Rosberg off course momentarily. The Ferraris just never seemed to be able to accumulate enough points to propel their drivers into the World's Championship lead. 4 drivers, but they did well in the manufacturer's standings.
Patrick Tambay is leading the British Grand Prix at Silverstone at this point as a flame erupts in the number 11 car of De Angelis. The engine is blown on that car, and it is out of competition.
Well, Elio, remember, he was the one who had qualified fast. He was a winner in 1982. He also had a pole position in the 1983 season.
It's Tambay, Arnoux, Prost, Patrese, and Nelson Piquet. And there is the new Spirit Honda driven by Stefan Johansson. He is dropping out of competition at this point.
It's an engine that will surface later in the season, and one that many feel will surface prominently in 1984.
So these top 5 still running in the same order, but Patrese comes into the pits with a blown engine.
Patrese in the Brabham retires, but his teammate, Nelson Piquet, remains out on the course.
And a change of position as Prost sneaks to the inside of Arnoux and picks up the point.
The move comes at Cox Corner, one of the most famous on the Grand Tour of Formula One racing. As there again you see a Ferrari figuring prominently. There is Arnoux leading Piquet through the corner.
Tambay, the leader here as the cars move through the chicane. Right behind him, Alain Prost.
Tambay has begun to slow a little bit right now. Later on, it would be blamed on a tire problem, not necessarily a problem, but the tires just weren't the right combination for the course today on the gigantic island of Great Britain.
And now to the inside, and Alain Prost passes Patrick Tambay and picks up the lead at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix.
Now also moving up to challenge Tambay is Nelson Piquet, the former world champion who ranks very strongly right now in the 1983 chase, is also in a position perhaps to get around Tambay shortly. There's Rosberg. Keke Rosberg has moved up to a challenging position. There you see Piquet and Tambay side by side with slower traffic in front of him. Tambay with his hands full. Now you see Piquet try to dart out of the slipstream, but still not quite enough room. But Piquet is really working over Tambay. Now he gets a propulsion. He moves to the inside.
Meanwhile, into the pits comes Alain Prost for his stop, as Nelson Piquet is the leader of the race at this point, and there he is. In the pits, Alain Prost, as the clock ticks off the valuable seconds. 13, 14 seconds has elapsed. About a 14.5-second pit stop for Prost, and Patrick Tambay also into the pit area, but now he's ready and back out on the course after also about a 14.5-second pit stop.
Tambay, of course, a two-time Can-Am champion, as he is back out on the course, is the man who led briefly before his pit stop. Nelson Piquet jerks his Brabham race car, his Brabham-BMW powered machine, and it's a great stop. It looks like the clock is ticking off 11, 12 seconds. A very strong pit stop for the Brabham team.
On the lead is Alain Prost in the Renault, car number 15. And into the pits is Nigel Mansell. This is a brand new car.
Mansell started in 18th, remember. He was to rise as high as 4th position, and after this fairly efficient pit stop, Mansell gets back out on the course in the brand new Lotus 94T, and he does come home in 4th position this day, his best finish of the 83 season.
Prost and Piquet running first and second.
There's Mansell back out on the course again, running that black
and there's
and
a piece of debris on the racetrack, and Mansell had to make a nice move to the inside to avoid hitting that.
He certainly did, running in front of the country that fosters this race car, and of course that crowd really wanted to see that black and gold Lotus do well today, and I suggest that he did not disappoint them. Mansell for Lotus, Arnoux for Ferrari. Battling, the Ferrari of course in red, the Mansell the black car, and the Lotus the black car, that is to say. And finally Nigel Mansell finds a way to get around.
This was the battle for 4th position. Meanwhile, here is the leader and eventual winner of the race, Alain Prost. Final results show Alain Prost as the winner. Nelson Piquet finished 2nd, Patrick Tambay 3rd, Nigel Mansell was 4th, and René Arnoux finished in 5th place. So after 9 events, the point standings have Prost in the lead with Piquet, Tambay, Rosberg, and Arnoux the next 4.
So the point standings really have kind of narrowed down as we head for the German Grand Prix in a pretty famous racetrack, Hockenheim. It looks like Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, and the Ferraris.
Well, look who's back up front, as you indicated, the Ferraris with Tambay and Arnoux on the front row. The starting flag is given and the field moves away.
He takes the early lead. That's Arnoux in 2nd, and Andrea de Cesaris bursts from the starting grid and takes over the early show position, 3rd.
Racing going on in 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th position as the first 2, the Ferraris, move out into the lead with Tambay and Arnoux. Here they are off of the turn. Field stringing by.
Piquet at this point has taken over 3rd position. There is the Renault of Cheever battling with De Cesaris for 4th position. They're still side by side. They touch momentarily going into the corner, and Eddie Cheever flexes some of that Yankee muscle and moves into the number 4 slot.
Well, some good racing going on as the Ferraris continue to lead up front here in the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. Meanwhile, into the pit area comes Patrick Tambay in number 27.
Now, Tambay had lost the oil pressure, and the day was over for one of the 2 Ferrari teams.
His teammate is in the lead, however. That, of course, René Arnoux. Patrick Tambay's day is over as he climbs out of that disabled race car. Number 11 car of Elio De Angelis also having a problem. Some fire coming from the rear end of that car. And in the pits here is Alain Prost in car number 15. He blasts back out on the racetrack.
Alain was in and out in 15 seconds, which kept him in contention for the victory here at the German Grand Prix.
So Nelson Piquet has moved into the lead at this point as Arnoux comes in for the pit stop. There is Nelson Piquet, the leader of the race. The clock still ticking on the Arnoux pit stop. 12 seconds have elapsed, now 13, just a little over 13-second pit stop for Arnoux as Jacques Lafitte is also in for his stop.
Jacques Lafitte in one of the 2 Tag Williams cars. Remember, Lafitte is the one who had all the bad luck. Here comes Lauda into the pits, and he overshoots his pit. Lauda will have to be pulled back by a screw. No, he puts it in reverse gear, which violates the rules, and that did result eventually in Lauda being disqualified. Niki Lauda with an uncharacteristic mistake.
Here's the leader, Nelson Piquet, in for a stop. Crew working on the right side of that car, changing rubber, the fuel being put in. Fuelmen have completed their job. Now the tires are on, and Piquet moves back out onto the race course. Meanwhile, René Arnoux now is the leader.
Piquet made his pit stop at lap number 31 of a 52-lap race, and a very efficient one it was. There he is already breathing down the tailpipes of John Watson in one of the McLarens.
Here's Patrese and Prost battling for 4th position as Patrese picks it up.
Now at this point in the race, René Arnoux and the Ferrari is out in front, but the question is, can Piquet, that man right there, backfiring fire like a dragon as he runs around the course, can he catch this man, René Arnoux? Piquet chasing Arnoux, Piquet driving for all his worth.
And you can see some fire coming from the rear engine of that car, and Piquet's racer is on fire. Apparently is looking for possibly a fire station that he could pull to and have the safety officials come and extinguish it, but the car of Piquet definitely on fire.
An agonizingly long period of time has elapsed now since the fire began. You can see the marshals are still not there. Nelson checking his back of his legs to make certain he is not on fire, and his steed burns briskly in the background, and still no fire marshals there to protect that race car. And finally, the steam and the foam goes on the machine to extinguish the blaze.
René Arnoux is the leader of this German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, looking for his 2nd win of the year here with about 3 laps to go.
Arnoux came up to the Formula One circuit back in 1971, but has found his best success here in the early part of the 1980s.
Arnoux winds up the winner. De Cesaris finishes in 2nd place. Ricardo Patrese 3rd, Alain Prost 4th, and Niki Lauda finishes 5th. Winner of the German Grand Prix, René Arnoux. Coming up, a review of the final race of the year in South Africa. Final race of the year, the point standings. Alain Prost in the lead with 57, Piquet with 55, and Arnoux with 49, then Patrick Tambay and Keke Rosberg. 3 drivers mathematically capable of winning the World Driving Championship. We move to South Africa and the Kyalami racecourse.
And even though Prost has the points lead going in, sweaty palms time for Alain, it was obvious that Nelson Piquet had the hot hand. He had won the last 2 races in a row. We go green light at South Africa, and the man everybody is watching is Nelson Piquet.
As they head for turn number 1, Piquet jumps into the lead with Patrese running in 2nd position. The battle for 3rd position, really Tambay and De Cesaris running side by side. Here is Nelson Piquet in the lead with Patrese running 2nd, Tambay 3rd, then De Cesaris, followed by Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg.
A mile-high city, the rarefied air made a lot of adjustments necessary in the turbochargers and all the other types of gasoline, fuel, and air mixtures. Also was a very hot day, so a difficult task for all the drivers to do well here. But Nelson Piquet, as we look back at one of the Tag Williams cars, Nelson Piquet, there he is, the leader, looks very strong at this point.
This is a 2.5-mile road course, 2.55 miles to be exact. The leader, Nelson Piquet, and De Cesaris moving to the inside here and moving into third position.
And watch for the black and yellow Renault of Alain Prost. Alain knows that he has to get up front and catch Nelson Piquet. He has to keep Piquet within sight, preferably finish at least one position from it. As we have a spin, it's the number 2 car, one of the Tag Williams team's cars. This is Jacques Lafitte.
Lafitte makes contact with the wall. The safety crew's right there to assist him as Prost is closing on De Cesaris.
Remember that De Cesaris in this Alpha has been fast. He's been quick, but bad luck has kept him out of victory lanes. The 2 cars racing side by side. Niki Lauda running with a Tag Porsche engine for the first time in the 1983 season, racing with Patrick Tambay. Lauda, just one of a number of teams that have found that it's necessary to go to the turbocharging in order to be competitive.
There is the number 28 car driven by René Arnoux, who has blown an engine and pulling to the pit area. As you can see, steam and smoke coming from that car.
Eliminate one contender for the World Championship title. Remember, Arnoux had a mathematical chance. Now it's down between that man, Prost. He holds the trump card. He's got the lead. And the Renault is the other car involved in the World Championship race. And that, of course, is Alain Prost.
Here's Niki Lauda passing Prost for third position. Nice move going into the turn out there as Lauda simply outbraked Prost. Meanwhile, Lauda now closing on Patrese.
Lauda is mixed right in with the leaders. Patrese, who he trails right now, of course, the leader of the race, Patrese's teammate, Nelson Piquet. Everybody began to wonder, was Lauda going to play a wild card role in the point standings, as he was right between Prost and that man, Piquet, on the race course.
Here's Nelson Piquet into the pit area for a stop. The crew working feverishly to get him back out in the shortest amount of time. Looks like it's going to be a good stop. And Piquet is away in 9.20 seconds, and that goes down in the history books as the fastest pit stop of the 1983 season.
It was later also discovered that Piquet had started the race on a half a tank of fuel. That's why he was so fast. The strategy paid off. He came out after this pit stop. He's still in the lead. He did not even relinquish first place.
Running behind him, though, is Patrese, and then Niki Lauda in third, but Nelson Piquet able to maintain the lead despite the pit stop. Alain Prost there running in fourth position. And Niki Lauda, who had been moving up fast, comes in for a stop.
Lauda, of course, with a brand new engine inside that McLaren chassis. The crew was working the bugs out. And there is the other contender for the World's Championship title for drivers, Alain Prost. Prost comes to a stop, to a halt, what appears to be just a routine pit stop. Suddenly the activity slows down and Prost is exiting the car. Alain Prost looks like his day and maybe his hopes for the World's Championship are gone. Now keep in mind that he came into this race with the points lead, so should Piquet drop out, Prost can still be champion.
Piquet, Patrese, De Cesaris, Tambay, and Lauda, that's the way they're running here. As into the pit area comes Patrese now.
Patrese sits patiently. He's got a chance for victory. He's not in it for the points championship race, but Patrese has run in second position to his teammate Nelson Piquet all day long. So Patrese gets out in good fashion, and Patrese right now, he's thinking victory.
Here's a battle for sixth position. Cheever and Keke Rosberg. Rosberg to the inside and picks up the position. They're really running wheel to wheel, but Keke Rosberg will pick up the position, moving into sixth place, passing Eddie Cheever.
And like Niki Lauda, this is the first time a turbo car for Keke Rosberg. This happens to be the V6 Turbo Honda, which a lot of people are looking at for 1984.
Patrick Tambay in one of the Ferraris is slowing down, and it looks like his day may be over. Here's a fire, meanwhile, breaking out in the car of Bruno Giacomelli.
This was to be Giacomelli's last ride for the Tolman Hart-powered turbo race car. The car has been fast in each of 1982 and 1983, but for Giacomelli, this would be the end of his day.
Fire being extinguished at the rear of that car. Is Piquet with Patrese running in second position.
Patrese moving in on Piquet. Some people, particularly in the grandstand, were beginning to wonder, is Piquet having a problem? But most pitsiders understood that Piquet had merely begun to pace himself. In the final analysis, Nelson Piquet drove one of the most intelligent races of the entire 1983 Grand Prix season.
Nicky now moving to the side of Nelson Piquet for second position.
Piquet is
Nelson Piquet second. That Nelson Piquet winds up as the world champion with 59 points. Alain Prost just 2 points behind in